Hello and welcome to Brand X Reviews. Today I'm going to be doing something quite different on the channel. This is just a quick intro video, then I'm going to kind of get into it on camera, but basically I'm going to talk about my vinyl journey, my record collecting history, and also the turntables that I own. I only own two. This is the main one that I use, the Audio Technica Lp 120. It's a direct drive turntable, which means it doesn't use a belt. It's not belt driven, but you can look up separate reviews of this thing. But I really like this. As you can see, it's got a lot of options on here. It's got a lot of buttons and switches and various different things that you can do when playing your records. It's really handy. It's an entry-level turntable. It's not particularly valuable. Some people say to me, don't show this stuff off on social media, you're going to get burgled. Seriously, these are not worth a huge amount of money. They're very affordable, cheaper than most TVs. Well, definitely. I mean, TVs are way more expensive. But anyway, obviously, as you can see here, this is my method of displaying things, or my various methods of displaying my records. I've got various setups. This thing's quite handy. You can have things open, but you can store a lot more in these kind of units. This unit was quite expensive. It was about £100 for what it is. I think I got it off like eBay or somewhere years ago. I also store a lot of my records, my singles, in that big box there that you can see. I've got some old 78s as well, and another case there. But like you can see, a kind of diverse way of displaying these things. This unit is another one that I made actually, just from scrap wood. It was an old bookcase that I kind of took apart, and obviously, given the cost of that previous unit, I thought I'd make one myself. I do also, it's a bit of a rabbit hole, I don't want to get into this today, but I do also collect cassettes, not to the same degree, but I've got quite a nice cassette deck here as well. It's on its own, that's wired into the speakers. The speakers that I'm using are Edifier bookcase ones. I'll show you them a bit closer later. But I do have some accessories, record cleaning brush, I've got an anti-static brush which also gets rid of surface dust. I also use a clamp, as you can see as well. It's kind of weight based. It doesn't hook onto the thing as such. It has a spirit level bubble as well, just so you can make sure that your turntable is properly calibrated and straight, and a general needle brush as well. Now, my backup record player, which is in the spare room, again you can see here it has facility to play cassettes, and it's part of a MIDI system, as we used to call it. This is something my granddad actually bought in the late 80s. I think it was like 88. He didn't get this top turntable. I kind of replaced the original turntable that was on it because it was knackered, so I replaced it with this Audio Technica Lp 60. This is kind of like a lesser version of the one that I showed you previously. It uses Bluetooth. It's not as good, it's not got as many options, but it's fine. The audio quality in this is decent enough. It's got a lot of options on there. Obviously, you've got the size option, you've got Bluetooth, you've got the speed, and it's kind of automatic. It is automatic, as you can see. It's got buttons, stop and start. The speakers are Bluetooth, these are Edifier ones. But anyway, I'll cut this short because I could talk all day about this stuff. Here's the actual video. So for this video, I'm going to be talking about my vinyl journey. That's the title of the video. It does sound a little bit pretentious, but I have seen other videos with a similar content, a similar theme, called that, and it does seem to summarise the kind of thing I'm going to be talking about here. So I'm going to stick to talking about records. I might give other formats a bit of a mention in for context, but the point of this is obviously my having grown up using record players or not, at certain times, and kind of the role they played at different times, how it kind of came and went and then came back again, especially for me anyway. So obviously my age is a factor in this, as well as it would be for anybody who was doing such a video. So to throw this out there, I was born in 1981. So growing up, let's say for the first decade of my life, particularly up to around about the age of 10, so let's say early 90s, cassettes were the fairly predominant format to use, particularly when you're out and about on the travels. The first music player of any kind that I ever owned that was mine was a cassette player. It was a Panasonic Walkman that you put cassettes into. That was something I got for my birthday when I was about 7 or 8. That was in the late 80s. But to put music on that, the cassettes that I had were compilation tapes, mixtapes that have been put together by my mother. Obviously, I was very young, so she'd put me these cassettes together and edit them together. So I seem to remember having Ghostbusters by Ray Parker Jr. because obviously it was late 80s. Ghostbusters was a big thing. I was about 7 or 8, so that was like typical for a child of my age to have something like that on a cassette. But where that came from was a record player that my parents had got, and it was what was it now? It was a Sharp SG309H. I've got a photograph of it. I'll just dig that out for you 1 second. But this was an all-in-one system, and it had obviously a function where it could play records as well as recording cassettes, playing cassettes, and also playing radio as well. So if I can somehow just get an image up of that, here we go. You'll see what I'm talking about. So this wasn't the actual player. This is just something I've Googled. But this is the kind of player that I'm talking about. So this is the first record player that I ever got used to using. As you can see, it's got a lot of nice little controls there on the actual turntable. And the rest of the thing, the other half, is a radio feature and a cassette player as well. So it's very nice. It wasn't the best, but it served its purpose. It died a death sometime in the late 90s, I seem to remember. But yeah, that was the record player that we had, and obviously growing up through the early 90s into the mid 90s, as I was kind of 12, 13, 14, getting hold of music to put onto other cassettes. A lot of that came from just raiding my parents' record collection. A lot of their records were quite old, but it was good stuff. So things like, I remember there was Queen's Greatest Hits 1 and 2, and some Jimi Hendrix in there as well. So I kind of learned a lot of that stuff through records. Now, the ones that I actually owned myself, I didn't have that many. I had some singles. I seem to remember a lot of these were film related. So I remember I had what was it called? On Our Own by Bobby Brown, which was a tie-in with Ghostbusters 2 that came out in '89. I remember I also had it's a bit embarrassing, but Turtle Power by Partners in Crime from the Ninja Turtles movie, and those were some 7-inch singles that were mine. So obviously you put them onto cassettes as well, but also would play them on this record player, which was pretty cool. My granddad also had a record player as well, which was part of a MIDI system that he bought around about 1989. So I got to use that occasionally as well. Similar sort of thing to this, but whereas this is flat, a MIDI system, if you're not familiar with it, was a load of decks on top of each other. You can actually see it in the background. This is the exact thing here. The turntable's not the same one. I'll get to that later. But he bought this in 1988, did my granddad, when he retired. And it's a Technics system. I showed you at the beginning of this video. It was a very nice piece of equipment at the time, and it would have been very expensive. But I'll come back to that anyway. So those are the kind of record players that I used and the kind of records that I owned at that age. Kind of going a bit further forward, so into the mid 90s, I was getting more into other music. I was finding other ways of obviously getting new music, recording things off the radio. I seem to remember Radio 1 and Longwave Radio Atlantic 252 used to record stuff onto cassette tapes from that. But that's a separate story. Stick to the records. Let's just stick to that. But as I found my music interests kind of developing over the years, there were other ways obviously you could buy cassette tapes and so on. I didn't really buy a lot of records though. And one exception to that would be my older sister used to have it wasn't a business, but it was some kind of thing that she did on the side, collecting and selling records. And she'd go to record fairs, and occasionally, it's very, very nice of her to do this. She used to buy me records just randomly, like for stuff that I was interested in, and some of it was good stuff. I remember she got me a couple of picture discs as well, which I still have, and that was the first time I ever saw records that were picture discs, and so that was quite interesting, especially as a collector. I never got rid of them. Like I say, I kept those till this day. But from the mid 90s onwards, it takes a bit of a break. Obviously, the format itself didn't completely die a death. It was still there, but it wasn't in any way. It was a very, very niche thing, and very difficult to get hold of records in general, if you could at all. So the records that I had, I kept hold of, but I didn't have anything to play them on because that record player I was showing you before on here, that just died a death in the late 90s. I had access to my granddad's old record player, but why would I really use that? I mean, CDs were a big thing, and obviously digital with MP3s and so on. Records were completely obsolete for me. Well, I like the ones that I had just to have them, but they didn't get played. I had no means of playing them for the longest time, from the late 90s right up till 2013. So I can't remember exactly what happened, but I seem to remember one time I was out shopping with my father. So at this point, I would be like in my early 30s, like 32, something like that. I seem to remember it was 2013. And we were in B&M, which, if you're watching this in another country, it's kind of like a discount supermarket, superstore kind of thing. It's not that super though. There's a lot of crap in there, but there's a lot of good stuff as well. So we're in a B&M and we found one of these discount, well, not a discount, one of these low budget turntables, like an all-in-one system, kind of like the Crosley players that you get now. It's like with a wooden sort of vintage style radio. Looks like a radio. It has a radio feature as well. I think it even played cassettes, but it had a turntable at the top. And we were looking at it and we thought, wouldn't it be cool to like play like the old records that we've got? Even though I didn't really own a lot, I had maybe 10. And some of them were the ones, like I say, that my sister bought me, the picture discs and so on. So I had some singles. I had some other ones of my father's as well. I kind of held on to, like the Queen's greatest hits. I kept hold of those. But yeah, we'll say, wouldn't it be nice to like play these again? And so it was like £40 or something. Not very good at all. I don't recommend even buying those. There's some thought that using those types of players can actually damage your records for a number of reasons. The stylus is very cheap, and so on. So, but I had that, and it was kind of cool, and it kind of got me wanting to start buying records again. The vinyl resurgence had started by this point as well. They were starting to get more popular, especially with like a new generation of kids that, unlike me, I mean, I was the latter end of the record era in the late 80s, early 90s, but a lot of kids at that age, sort of teenagers and so on, had never used this stuff. So to them, it was like rediscovering, something ancient. It's completely alien to them. So I think that was something that helped the vinyl resurgence as well. But to me, it was a bit of a callback. So I did want to start getting into record collecting and so on, and I did go out to a few shops. I seem to remember going to one called Relics in Leeds, which me and my father always used to go to when I was a kid, and it was still there in 2013. It's still there today. Very good shop. Shout out to Relics in Leeds. But I remember going there back in 2013 and actually buying a few records, like second-hand ones. But at that point in my life, I wasn't making a huge amount of money. As you're very well aware if you're into this, it's a very expensive hobby to get into as well. And I got bitten by the bug, but I just could not sustain that as a hobby. So I bought a few records and I kind of burnt out. I wanted to buy more, I just couldn't justify it. And the turntable I had didn't really inspire you to buy and play more records. So it was always there though for the next couple of years. So from 2013 onwards, it was like I wanted to be more into this, but I just couldn't. But change of circumstances in 2015, I was earning a bit more money. I seem to remember as well, I'd had a relationship come to an ending as well. So I was kind of looking for something to look forward to, something to get into as well. So I kind of set it upon myself to actually buy like a decent turntable and also start buying records again. At this point, you were seeing a lot more records in shops like HMV, on the shelves, that kind of thing. So it seemed like this was something that I could really do. So I didn't hugely know what I was doing. I didn't make the best choices at the time, but I saved up for about 2 months. And I bought this. The reason I'm looking down is because I'm trying to find a picture of it. Sorry. I bought this player it was a Teac, a very good make as well. It was a Teac Lpp 1000. I think the model name might have changed, but it's the same one that you can still get now. And as you can see, it's an all-in-one player, which aren't necessarily the best things to get. I wouldn't really do this again nowadays, but as you can see, it's got like a CD drive, it's got radio. It doesn't have cassette, but it does have a line in, and obviously it has a turntable at the top. But it's not the best. and it was about £350, and I saved up for a while. I was doing overtime for a couple of months, just so that I could justify blowing that kind of money on this. I was really happy when I bought it. I seem to remember it was, in fact, I bought it on Back to the Future Day in 2015. It was October 23rd, 2015. If you watch Back to the Future 2, that's when they go, that's the day they go to. So I remember that was the day when I got this. And I was really happy with it, but again, it wasn't the best, and I could tell. I mean, the speakers on it are really good, but over time as well, I'd looked at other turntables like the Audio Technica ones and so on. And I was like thinking, yeah, they're probably going to be a better option. And so this was a record player I had upstairs in my room, but I didn't find myself just sitting down and listening to an album like at any one time. It's not something that I do. Even now, I don't really just do that unless I've got another job that I'm doing on the computer or something. So something kind of clicked with me, because I do home gym stuff, usually weightlifting. Don't need to get into the technicalities of it, and you wouldn't be able to tell that I do that looking at me. But that's for a separate video. And I tended to find myself listening to podcasts and stuff, and I thought I can't really focus on weightlifting when I'm doing that. You're supposed to make a mild mind-muscle connection when you're doing it. And if I'm thinking of what I'm listening to on podcasts or whatever, it's a bit distracting. And at the same time, I don't really sit down and listen to records. So I thought it'd be really good to combine the two, to actually play music and have it something that I look forward to. I mean, everybody can just turn some music on, but have it as like an almost not a ritual, but like a ceremonial thing for me, like looking forward to putting a record on. But I'm not just sat doing nothing. It's productive as well, because I'm lifting weights, and I'm kind of lifting weights can be a tedious thing and something you kind of just a chore. Whereas if I'm enjoying it because I'm listening to records at the same time, it's a really good blend of two sort of issues that I've got. They not be motivated to do the home gym and not be motivated to just sit and listen to records. Combine the two, and that was in 2018, and I've pretty much sustained that. So my record player gets used 5 or 6 days a week now, and has been doing for the last 4 years. 4 years. So that's what I've been using. That's the Audio Technica Lp 120, which is the one that I've got downstairs. That's my main turntable. I got that in 2018. And then the Teac one that I'd bought back in 2015 just kind of got relegated to being the secondary player, and I moved up into this room here. But that died a death. I mean, the pitch went on it, and it was very difficult to get that fixed as well without faffing around. So what I did was I dug out my granddad's old MIDI system, because he passed away in 2016. My family wanted to throw this away. I says, no, I've got happy memories of this. I'll get it working again. It wasn't in the worst condition, but it had a few issues. The turntable was just gone. It didn't work at all. Bits of it were snapped as well. So I replaced out the turntable with an Audio Technica LP 60. So that's kind of like a lesser version of the LP 120. It's a Bluetooth. I'm not going to do a full review on it here, but it is what it is. And it fits perfectly on top of the Technic's MIDI system as well. So this is performing pretty much the same function as the other one I did that had broken. So I managed to revive my granddad's old MIDI system. He'd be really proud of that as well, because I know he was very proud of this, and he'd wired it up in in a really weird way that we found out after he died. So it got a new lease of life. I improved the radio function on it. I gave it a better aerial so you can get more stations on it. So again, this is something that gets used quite a lot, not as often as the one downstairs. Like I say, I use that 5 or 6 days a week. This one maybe gets used once a month, if that, when I'm sat in this room. So, but it's just nice to have those kind of options. And I didn't break the bank buying any of these. That's the other great thing. The Audio Technica LP 120 that I bought in 2018. Again, for some reason that coincided with ending a relationship as well. It was more of a fling, to be honest, but separate issue. Again, let's save that for another video. But yeah, that was something that I kind of came to a point where I just wanted to buy something decent, wanted to be so happy about something, and have something to look forward to, and kind of get back into record collecting, which I really kind of restarted around 2015, roughly. Like I said, I started in 2013, but I couldn't justify it. But 2 years later, when I bought the Teac player, I had a change in financial circumstance. I got a better job. I was able to afford actually buying records and stuff. So, but by 2018, I was really getting into it by this point, and this wasn't just something that was like a fad. I've been consistently buying records since then. So, but again, it's not something you need to break the bank on. If you budget yourself, if you pace yourself with this, even buying the turntables, they don't have to be that expensive. This one that I got here was £100. It's very cheap. Obviously, you need to buy speakers with it and so on as well, separate to that. But it's affordable. It's not too bad. And for that kind of budget, a lot of people would buy a different kind of player. But I would recommend the Audio Technica. It's a good one. It's an entry level one. Some people just say, "Oh, it's just a toy." But no, it does a good job. And the Audio Technica Lp 120, again, there's plenty that you could say against it, but it really does do a good job. And you've got upgrade options with that as well. It's something that I like about it. You can replace the stylus. I use an Autophon 2M Red, which I've been using for quite a few years. I wouldn't have thought it should have lasted as long as it did, but I've been using it a lot and it hasn't faded. It's just, I've maintained it very well. I use a stylus brush, use accessories. It's all the fun with this kind of thing, and it's paid off. So you're spending a lot of money. As long as you maintain it, you keep good care of it, it will last quite a long time. So like I say, with the Audio Technica Lp 120, the main one that I've got downstairs cost about £230. I seem to remember I got that off eBay, like I say, back in 2018. And that's my main player. And like I say, it gets used a lot. The speakers I use are Edifier, sort of bookshelf speakers. I could do a lot better. As I say, I talk about upgrading and stuff, but I didn't want to do anything too extravagant. And the speakers that I do use are very good as well. But I might do some future videos talking about other upgrades that I've done. Obviously, the Audio Technica Lp 120, you can change out the mat for the platter. I use an acrylic one, but you can do whatever. I've used cork as well. I wasn't too big of a fan of the cork one. I actually have one here. I've kind of retired this because it just started shedding, and I was finding like little flakes of cork on my records, which wasn't great. And to be honest, I didn't think that the sound quality was light years ahead of just using the mat that you get, the felt mat. I still have the felt mat on this one, to be honest, but the one downstairs, like I say, is like an acrylic platter for it as well, which is pretty good. But it would be nice to upgrade to something really decent. I was looking into it back in 2020. Obviously, shit was going on in 2020. I was looking for something fun, so I was considering getting maybe a Project Debut Carbon or something like that, but I couldn't really justify it, to be honest. They're very expensive, and I've got other things to spend money on. And I could buy a hell of a lot of records with that, let alone just get a new player that I don't really need. So I just went to just buying lots more records. But yeah, over the last few years, I've not got thousands or anything, but I've got maybe 300-400 records or something. And again, a lot of people have said, like, don't post this on social media. You're advertising what you've got in your house. Well, I'm sorry, but everybody's got a TV in the house. Everybody's got something decent. My turntable, like I said, was about 200 odd quid. If that makes me like a hot target for burglary, what the hell else have you people got in your house? If that's considered something to be hugely valuable. So I'll leave there. I could talk on for ages. I didn't want to make this video too long, so I might do some future videos anyway, talking about other little things to do with accessories and just record collecting in general. But I like watching videos like this, so I hope you got something out of it. And some of you may relate to this story, some of you might be completely out there. And I do get asked a lot about, what kind of player I use and so on. So at least now I'll be able to direct them towards this video, and hopefully that'll be of interest. But yeah, I'll cut it short there anyway. Like I say, it's dragged on for too long. But Brandex Reviews, if you've enjoyed this video, you can like and subscribe. I'll see if I can put more content out like this in the future. But for now, I will say thank you very much for watching.